and a warm welcome to the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja. I am Obiageli Ugoke, and we'll begin with the headlines. President Buhari endorses Osagie Ize-Iyamu as party standard bearer in forthcoming Edo governorship elections, assents to amended Companies Allied Matters Bill. Religious leaders visit Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna State, sue for peace as northern governors condemn persistent attacks. And federal government set to commence payment of June hazard allowance to medical personnel. Now we'll begin with amended matters bill. President Muhammadu Buhari Friday in Abuja assented to the Companies and Allied Matters Bill 2020, recently passed by the National Assembly. A statement by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, says the President's action on this important piece of legislation, therefore, repealed and replaced the Extant Companies and Allied Matters Act 1990, introducing after 30 years several corporate legal innovations geared towards enhancing ease of doing business in the country. Such innovations include filing fee reductions and other reforms to make it easier and cheaper for small and medium-sized enterprises to register and reform their businesses in Nigeria, allowing corporate promoters of companies to establish private companies with a single member or shareholder, and creating limited liability partnership and limited partnership to give investors and business people alternative forms of carrying out their business in an efficient and flexible way. Innovating processes and procedures to ease the operations of companies, such as 1. Introducing statements of compliance, replacing authorized share capital with minimum share capital to reduce cost of incorporating companies, and providing for electronic filing, electronic share transfers, e-meetings, as well as remote general meetings for private companies in response to the disruptions to close contact physical meetings due to the COVID-19 pandemic. D. Requiring disclosure of persons with significant control of companies in a register of beneficial owners to enhance corporate accountability and transparency. And E. Enhancing the minority shareholder protection and engagement, introducing enhanced business rescue reforms for insolvent companies and permitting the merger of incorporated trustees for associations that share similar aims and objectives. And let's talk politics now. President Muhammadu Buhari has formally endorsed the candidacy of Pastor Osagie Ize-Iyamu of the APC for election as the governor of Edo State. Receiving the candidate of the governing party, the president urged the people of the state to massively vote for him towards restoring the heartbeat of the nation on the path of sustainable future. State House correspondent Adam Sambo reports.
The APC candidate for the forthcoming Edo State governorship election, Pastor Osagie Ize-Iyamu, was meeting President Muhammadu Buhari for the very first time. He was formally introduced to the Nigerian leader by, amongst others, the chairman, APC caretaker and extraordinary convention planning committee, chairman, Progressives Governors Forum, and chairman, APC Governorship Campaign Council for Edo State. Discussions at the interactive engagement that followed behind closed doors centered on ways and means of ensuring that the APC candidate achieves triumphant victory at the polls. Most importantly, the APC leaders want the conduct of the election to be very peaceful and orderly towards achieving a credible outcome.
As we are all aware, Pastor Ize-Iyamu is not a greenhorn in Edo politics. He's a grassroots politician, loved by his people, and he went through the transparent process that produced him, and Mr. President has endorsed him, the party has endorsed him. So Mr. President is impressed with his performance so far.
For the Progressive Governance Forum, the defining thing is continuity of the All Progressive Congress in governance at the federal and across Nigeria. And we will support our party any day. The President is very, very clear about his expectation of us to deliver our party in any election, and that is what we will do.
We are contesting against a serving governor in Edo State who failed woefully. It could have been a big problem if the governor performed well while governing his state. He could have been an asset to PDP, but I assure you that governor is a liability. So we are ready to fight somebody who has failed.
Let me also use this opportunity to debunk the story that has been going around in the past 1 week from the opposition that Mr. President did not want to see me. There's no truth in it. The reception I got very warm, very fatherly. The cooperation I've received is unprecedented. I'm happy to belong to the progressive family. And I want to assure you that we'll win overwhelmingly. So please, help me thank the President for this love.
Edo State governorship election comes up on the 19th of September 2020. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress APC has urged security services to stay vigilant and be guided by the law in its effort to prevent a breakdown of law and order in Edo State House of Assembly. The party's Deputy National Publicity Secretary, Yekini Nabena, in a statement, wants all parties and their proxies to ensure peace and adherence to the rule of law in all their actions. The statement noted that it is illegal to deny duly elected legislators their constitutional rights to represent their constituencies in government, and that for the 24-member Edo State House of Assembly, 7 cannot be greater than 17. The APC says independence of the legislature as an important arm of government must be guaranteed and protected without interference from the government, that is, the executive, partisans, and other non-state actors, describing the activities of the Edo State government on the State House of Assembly as a brazen assault on the Constitution and the rule of law. In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it will withdraw from the conduct of Edo governorship election if the threat of violence escalates and candidates unduly influence the electorate. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu stated this in an interview with newsmen in Nasarawa State.
Whatever we need to do to stem the ugly reports of violence so far, or threats of it, particularly in Edo State, we'll do so. We'll continue to speak to the actors. The assurance has been consistent with the assurance that we have always given. We are not a political party. We have no candidates in the election. We will jealously guard our processes. But as I said, and I keep repeating myself, anybody who thinks that he can influence the people's choice on election day through violence is wasting his time. If there is violence, we'll simply withdraw and we'll see who will declare winner in that manner.
And away from the governorship election, there is no doubt that nations across the globe, including Nigeria, are deeply confronted with challenges by the coronavirus pandemic. All things working for good as the pandemic equally presents opportunity for innovation and technology development. And this is what Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is emphasizing, urging the private sector to take the lead in the charge for Nigeria's economic growth and development, and to unwrap the opportunities which abound across different sectors in the economic sustainability plan as designed by the federal government. Away from that, the federal government has assured the commencement of the payment of June hazard allowance for medical personnel handling the COVID-19 pandemic from next week. The Minister for Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, discloses after a meeting between the federal government and the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, in Abuja. Justin Bermuni reports.
This was a continuation of the meeting earlier adjourned last week, where the National Association of Resident Doctors had issued an ultimatum citing some issues of dispute. Among these issues was the yet-to-be-paid June hazard allowance to medical workers handling the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting brought to an end that dispute as the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, affirmed all necessary arrangements to commence payment have been done.
IP's Accountant General Office, the money they have was from 20 billion. But they are running around, government has run around to make sure that we process the payment for June.
The minister also met with the Nigerian Medical Association on similar issues and re-echoed the federal government's priority towards the health sector in terms of funding, but decried the lack of will by state governments to replicate such implementations. He, however, disclosed that the federal government will be renegotiating with the associations to renew and overhaul the agreements on COVID-19 hazard allowance, considering paucity of funds.
So I intend to bring everybody back to the table next week. All health workers, including NMA. We will have our meeting again with open transparency. I'll ask finance to come. They will put on the table the budget, the COVID budget, intervention. They will put what they're able to scoop from contingencies and other things. And we shall all see it. And then agree on a new percentage that will be for the COVID workers. We should also agree, because the first one was a test run on who is eligible to get this.
The medical bodies appreciated the federal government's interventions to motivate them in carrying out their life-saving duty and requested stronger implementation of some other unresolved agreements on ground. Justin Bermuni, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja. We'll take a short break now. When we return, more stories. Please stay tuned. Glad to know you're still there. Now let's take a look at COVID-19 updates. World Health Organization warns of dangers of COVID-19 vaccine nationalism as coronavirus cases in Africa exceed 1 million. Let's join Joyce Ometu for an update on the health crisis.
The World Health Organization has warned against vaccine nationalism, cautioning richer countries that if they keep treatments to themselves, they cannot expect to remain safe if poor nations are exposed. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom said it would be in the interest of wealthier nations to help every country protect itself against the disease. Statistics by the Coronavirus Resource Center in Johns Hopkins University published at 6 p.m. show that cases has reached 19,374,783, out of which 12,440,883 people have recovered. Africa now has more than 1 million cases of coronavirus. Although experts say lack of comprehensive testing across the continent means the true extent of the pandemic is not known. So far, 22,143 fatalities have been registered, while 694,859 patients have recovered. Nigeria now has 45,244 cases, out of which 32,430 people have been treated and discharged, while 930 fatalities are recorded. Turning attention to India, more than 2 million people have now been infected with coronavirus, accounting for the world's third highest caseload. The Health Ministry said 62,538 cases were reported in 24 hours. Meanwhile, Mexico's coronavirus deaths have passed 50,000 as the government faces criticism on how it's handling the health crisis. Elsewhere, Syria's capital is facing a spike in COVID-19 cases. Hospitals are overwhelmed with medics expressing fears that the virus is spreading faster than clinics can test. The Health Ministry had admitted that this week it lacks the capacity to carry out widespread testing. And that's it from here. I am Joyce Ometu.
Many thanks, Joyce, for that update. Now joining us in the studio to talk more on the reduction in cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria and the need for sustenance is Dr. Ejike Orji, Chairman, Medical Subcommittee, FCT Ministerial Expert Advisory Committee on COVID-19. Dr. Orji, you're welcome to NTA International. In the last 2 weeks, Nigeria has witnessed a reduction in cases of COVID-19 infection. What's your take?
Well, my take here is that you've seen numbers. Numbers are not alone to say that the disease is coming down. There are a lot of epidemiological modelings that go behind the scene to be able to confirm that those numbers are actually decreasing, because a lot of factors play. Number one, it could be that the testing is not enough. So even though the cases are all moving around, they have not been tested and captured in the database to show that the virus is still spreading. So it's important to allow the NCDC to do their proper modeling and come out with a position to say whether the disease is receding or not. So I would not want to say that because we have low numbers, it means you can just say that the virus is disappearing. So it's important for us to do a proper assessment. It's a data-driven thing. It's not a wish thing. Once it's done, we will know. Nobody will doubt it.
So in spite of the reduction, we need a proper assessment to this development. Now, in spite of this, PTF and some other Nigerians are still expressing fears on non-compliance of the greater number of the population to COVID-19 safety protocol. Why the fear?
The fear is very obvious. If you go around the town, especially here in Abuja, if you step into any of the, should I say, the marketplaces or whatever, you just see that the young people are moving around without masks. Hardly could you even see anybody that is wearing a mask. When you do see, they are wearing them on their chins, which is a very worrisome situation. And people are actually dying. At least in the past 2 months, I've known some close friends, 2 of them actually professors of medicine, that passed on because of COVID-19. But you know, the terrible thing about this disease is so sneaky and it's so deceiving. The reason is that the young people who might be healthy carriers don't feel a thing. And then when they don't feel a thing, we tell them that they are ill. They say, you don't know what you're talking about. But unfortunately, they will take those diseases back to their parents and grandparents. And that's actually what is going on. And then when a big man dies in Nigeria, it makes news. But when a poor man dies in the villages out of corona, nobody knows. So there's still this belief and conspiracy theory by people that this is a disease of the big man, is only killing the big men. That is not true. And then so even though the case fatality ratio is very small compared to other terrible viruses that we have, but the sheer numbers that this disease go to catch at any point in time increases the number of deaths eventually. And then it's important also to know, even in Abuja here, people say it's coming down. It's not true. If you look at the data projections, even for last week of July, you could see that it's still climbing. And then before you can even say that the disease has to come down, there should be a plateau of, is an epidemiological model that is seen in the science of viruses. There will be a climb, a plateau before it comes down.
Okay, Doctor, sorry, let me cut you short there. Yeah. What effect will the resumption of exit classes, because we've seen that schools have reopened, what effect would this have across the country, likely in daily figures of COVID-19 infection in Nigeria?
You know, this question of young children going back to school has been a very knotty issue in the country. And then I think at a point it was put off, and now it's been brought back. My take here is that we cannot forever not allow children to go back to school, but at the same time, there are clear guidelines the PTF has put in place. I think where we should put our energies now the government has put a clear guideline to make sure those guidelines are followed. And then not only followed, there will be proper monitoring and evaluation of the process. If for any reason that we see there's some level of increase, I think it would be good to pull back, which is what is standard process that is going on all over the world.
All right. Also, some other countries like US, China, Ghana, Kenya had to close schools soon after reopening because of the spike in infection. What measures should be taken to avert this type of experience in Nigeria?
Yes, like I said, is a robust monitoring and evaluation, making sure that people adhere strictly to the guidelines that has been laid down. From the word go, even before the children go back to school, there should be a monitoring team, there should be a safety team trained in every school to oversee what's going on, and there should be oversight from the health authorities, especially from the NCDC or the EOC of each of the states. So if we do proper monitoring and evaluation, we can always know whether we have to continue or not, or whether we'll be able to get ahead of the disease and let our children go to school.
So in spite of the reduction in cases, we still need proper monitoring.
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much,
Doctor,
for coming on NTA International.
Thank you for having me.
That was Dr. Orji, Chairman, Medical Subcommittee, FCT Ministerial Expert Advisory Committee on COVID-19. Now moving on. Arrangements have been concluded with Air Peace Airlines for the 8th batch of evacuation flight for stranded Nigerian nationals in the United Kingdom. The flight is scheduled to depart Gatwick Airport, London, on 21st August 2020 at 11 a.m. local time to Abuja only. A statement by the United Kingdom High Commission informs all prospective evacuees that in the light of the foregoing, all prospective evacuees are required to make payments for their tickets, adding that payment in Naira is also acceptable at the going market rate, and if payment is made by proxy, full names of the passengers as it appears on international passports must be reflected in the payment reference. Thereafter, the evidence of payment. Passport data page and destination should be forwarded to UK Evacuation at flyairpeace.com, and WhatsApp number +234 909 342 4316. Prospective evacuees are also to note that they are required to undergo a self-funded COVID-19 PCR test immediately in line with the new guidelines of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. Away from that, a special offences mobile court sitting in Abuja has fined music star Aziz Fashola, popularly known as Naira Marley, 200,000 naira after he pleaded guilty in a 4-count charge bordering on flouting the restriction order on movement during coronavirus pandemic. Olabode Arewa has more.
Aziz Fashola was arraigned before Magistrate Idayat Akoni for flying into Abuja on June 30, 2020 and holding a musical concert in violation of COVID-19 restrictions. The defendant pleaded guilty to the charges filed against him by the Abuja Environmental Protection Board. His counsel, Mohammed Yunusa, prayed the court to temper justice with mercy, as his client is a first offender. The court imposed a fine of 50,000 naira on each of the 4 counts, which means he will pay 200,000 naira.
The court also ordered him to publish a public apology to the federal government of Nigeria in a national daily
What it means is that moving forward, we will be very detailed, and confirm informations given to us or to our client, by people who book him. Like this particular instance, they gave us all the assurances that my client they have procured all the approvals from the federal government for him to be in Abuja.
He had earlier been found guilty by Lagos State Special Offences Mobile Court for embarking on the non-essential travel. In Abuja, Olabo Darewa, NTA News.
Let's talk a bit of security. The Northern Governors Forum has condemned the recent attack in southern Kaduna in which about 22 persons were reportedly killed on Wednesday night. As yet to be arrested, gunmen attacked 4 ATY villages in Zango, Katarf local government area of Kaduna State.
A statement by Director of Press Public Affairs to the Governor of Plateau State, Chairman Northern Governors Forum, Dr. Makud Simon Macham, Governor Simon Lalong said the persistent attacks on villages in the area, despite all efforts by the Kaduna State government and security agencies to end the violence, raises serious concern and condemnation. Lalong said this recent attack where the ITEB villages were affected shows the desperate attempt by criminal elements not to only cause pain and sorrow among innocent citizens, but also frustrate the efforts of the Kaduna State government at fostering peace and harmony. Governor Lalong also said that the Governors Forum maintains its position that any group or individual that is aggrieved for whatsoever reason should seek redress through official channels than resorts to self-help, which only exacerbates crisis and instability. The Northern Governors Forum commiserates with the victims of the crisis and the government of Kaduna State, pledging its support to Governor Nasir El-Rufai as he works with all stakeholders to bring the incessant crisis to an end.
UEFA Champions League returns on Friday. Ayodeji Magide brings us more on sports.